Good morning. My name is Zoha Shakib. I'm from CC Year 1 Group 2, and these are my 10 exercises for Code Lab 1. In the first exercise, I use string concatenation to print the phrase coding is cool using a single print function. I used 3 different variables and assigned a string to each variable, then used the print function and the string concatenation operator, which is the plus sign, to print the phrase in a single line. In exercise 2, I performed arithmetic operations using variables. First, I assigned an integer 8 to the variable a and integer 10 to variable b. Then I created a new variable called c and assigned it with the sum of the first two variables. I then used the print statement to print the value of c in the output. In exercise 3, I used a dictionary to store information about a person. I created a dictionary called person and added 3 keys which are name, hometown, and age, and their values are Zoha, Sharjah, and 18 respectively. Then I used the print function and used f-strings to insert the values from dictionary in the output, and here /n is used to create a new line for each piece of information. For the advanced exercise, for the advanced requirement for exercise 3, I created a variable called name, which will ask the user to input their name, and it will store the value in the variable called name. In the next line, again, I created another variable called hometown, which will ask the user to input their hometown, and it will store the value in the variable hometown. Then I used the while loop so that the user has to enter a valid number for age. The program will ask the user to input any age. Then I use the break statement, so if the user enters an age that is not valid, the break statement will stop the loop and show an error message to the user. Then I created a dictionary called person, in which the keys are name, hometown, and age, and the respective values are name, hometown, and age as well. In this way, the values are not already there, but the user can input the values by themselves. Then I use the f-strings to insert the values, which the user will enter into the dictionary and give the output using the print statement. And the /n is to make sure each part prints in a new line. In exercise 4, I used the if-else statement to create a simple program that asks the user a question and gives feedback. First, I created a variable named x and used the input function so that the user can enter the input. Then I assigned the correct answer to variable x by using the assignment operator and used the if-else and used the if statement to check if the user enters the correct answer. If the user enters the correct answer, I use the print statement to provide feedback. But if the user enters any other answer, for that I use the else statement followed by the print statement, which will give feedback. For the advanced requirement of exercise 4, I created a variable and used input function so that the user can enter input. Since Python is a case-sensitive language, I used the .lower function so that if the user enters any capital letter, the output will not be affected. Then I just used the if-else statement and used the print function for the feedback. Then for the second part of the advanced requirement, I extended the quiz by adding 10 more countries and used the same pattern as above, but with different variables. In exercise 5, I first created a dictionary named days in month and added 12 keys, which is the month number, and then the values are the number of days in the month. Then I created a variable called month and used the int integer function so that any value which the user enters will be an integer. Then I used the if-else statement. For if statement, the computer will check if the input which user enters is present in the dictionary. If the value is present, then the computer will give a clear output because I used f strings so that the value will be inserted from the dictionary. For the advanced requirement of exercise 5, in the same way as above, I created a dictionary, used input function for user to input any number. Then I used the conditional statement to check if the value of month is within range of 1 to 12. Then I used another if statement to check if the month is 2, which is February, and then the user will input if the year is a leap year or not, and computer will give feedback according to the input from the user. In exercise 6, I used while loop for a password entry system. First, I assigned a password to a variable, then used while loop. Then I created another variable which will allow user to input using input function that I used. If-else statement to check, then I used the if-else statement to check if the correct password matches the password entered. If the password is the same, then I use the break statement to stop the loop. But if the password is not the same, then using the else statement, a different output will be displayed. The advanced requirement of exercise 6. First, I created a variable which stores the maximum attempts to enter password, and then another variable stores the correct password, and another variable stores the attempts which the user has done so far. Then I use the while loop to check if the user attempts are less than the maximum attempts, then the user can enter a password. If the password is correct, output will be displayed and loop will stop because I used the break statement. I use the else statement. In that, the computer will tell the attempts left for the user. I use the increment operator for that. Then I use the if-else statement again, which will display output based on the user's answers. In exercise 7, all the 5 parts are done in the same way because they all required a for loop. For the first part, I used for loop with variable a and used the range function for counting with increment here. Here 0 is inclusive, 51 is exclusive, and 1 is the increment between each number. I use the print function to get output. For The second part, I use the range function for counting, but with decrement here. So here -1 is exclusive, and the other -1 means decrement. The other parts are done in the same way. In exercise 8, first I created a list with 6 elements. Then I used the if statement to check if Sam is present in the list called boys. If Sam is present, then using the print statement, the computer will display required output. Otherwise, there will be no output. For the optional requirement of exercise 8, I created a list first called names. Then I used the while loop to check if the input user entered is present in the list. Then I used the if else statement. If the user enters exit, then because of the break statement, the loop will break. And I also used dot lower function so that the user does not have to worry about capitalization. Then the if-else statement will check if the user input is present in the list, and based on the answer, output will be displayed. In exercise 9, the first line defines the function named hello, and it has no arguments. I use the print function with the message hello inside to output hello. This line defines another function named main, and in this line the function is called because it is necessary to call the function for us to get an output. In exercise 10, I am first defining the function called even odd, and it has one argument. Then I use the if-else statement. This is the remainder operator. It will give a remainder when 2 is divided by any number. If the remainder is 0, then using the return function, the program will return a message that the number is even, or else the return function will return message that the number is odd if the remainder is not 0. Then I defined another function with no arguments. Then I created a variable which allowed the user to input any number. Then I created another variable and called the function. Then I used the print function for output.